Hey there, today we've got a wild story about a cowboy who bathed in the wrong river and ended up facing the sternest Apache chief you could imagine. This tale is full of courage, unexpected twists, and a promise that changed a man's life forever. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment if you love Wild West adventures. Alright, saddle up folks, let's get started. This story is one you won't forget. The sun scorched the endless plains, casting long shadows over the rugged landscape, as Jade rode his weary horse along the winding trail. Dust clung to his boots and jeans, his wide-brimmed hat shielding eyes that had seen too many relentless days under the unforgiving sun. Sweat ran down his weathered face, and his throat was parched from the weeks of herding cattle across the dry, unforgiving plains. All he wanted now was relief. A moment to wash away the grime of travel, to feel the cool water of a river as he had heard in passing whispers along the trail. He spurred his horse forward, guided only by the sun and the memory of a crystal-clear river spoken of by a wandering peddler. Legends, he thought, always led a cowboy into trouble, but the promise of cool, refreshing water pushed him onward faster and faster. The plains stretched endlessly, but suddenly in the distance, the sunlight shimmered off something that could only be water. His heart lifted as his horse neighed, sensing the approach of a river like an oasis after days in the desert heat. Jade's spirits rose, ignoring the warning signs that often whispered danger in the quiet wilderness. Without hesitation, he dismounted, loosening his dust-caked boots and tossing the reins to the ground. He could hear the faint gurgle of the river calling to him as though it had been waiting for this very moment. Stripping down to his underclothes, he plunged into the refreshing water, the coolness stealing the sting of sunburn and fatigue from his body. He laughed aloud, the sound echoing across the empty plains, his tension melting away with each splash. For a fleeting moment, Jade felt invincible, a man in perfect harmony with the untamed wilderness around him. He had no idea that this river was no ordinary waterway, that its banks were sacred and patrolled by a tribe whose rules were strict and unwavering. Chief Nanton, the leader of the Apache, was a man whose reputation stretched far beyond the desert, a chief whose word carried the weight of law and whose eyes missed nothing. The chief was known for fairness, but also for swift justice. Anyone who disrespected his land faced consequences that could alter the course of their life forever. And now Jade, blissfully unaware, had crossed a line that few outsiders ever dared approach. The sudden appearance of the chief on the riverbank startled Jade, making him nearly slip in the rushing water. The man was imposing, adorned in ceremonial feathers and war paint, his expression carved with authority and unspoken power. His voice rang out across the river, booming with a command that made the cowboy freeze mid-splash. Whoever bathed in this river would marry his daughter, he declared, leaving Jade dumbfounded. The words echoed in the cowboy's mind, disbelief and humor wrestling with the stark reality of what he had just stumbled into, and his laughter faded, replaced by a cold, nervous gulp. Jade tried to speak, to offer an apology, but the weight of the chief's gaze stopped him. Every word seemed trivial compared to the unwavering certainty in Nanton's eyes. The cowboy had faced bandits, wild animals, and dangerous trails, but nothing had prepared him for this moment of legal and cultural consequence. He realized instantly that reasoning, charm, or excuses might not suffice here. The chief's law was clear, and the consequences of ignoring it could be severe. Jade had entered a world where the rules were written by generations, where honor and courage were tested in ways he had never imagined. Yet Jade's nature would not allow him to cower. He straightened, water dripping from his hair, and forced himself to meet the chief's gaze. He admitted his ignorance honestly, acknowledging that he had not known the river belonged to the Apache. There was a pause, a tense silence broken only by the soft rush of water and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. Jade sensed that this moment of honesty, this willingness to accept responsibility, might be the only chance he had to salvage his dignity, and perhaps, just perhaps, his freedom. The chief considered the cowboy, noting the sincerity in his posture and the flicker of courage in his eyes. Chief Nanton was a man who valued honor, who saw strength not just in action but in integrity. "You will not run, you will not resist. You will abide by my law," he said finally, his voice steady and commanding. Jade nodded, fully aware of the gravity of his choice. To refuse was unthinkable, and yet to accept would thrust him into a world of trials he had no preparation for. And somewhere deep inside, Jade felt a spark of exhilaration, the kind only a true cowboy could recognize, the thrill of testing fate itself. Word of Jade's unintentional trespass spread quickly through the village. Curious eyes watched as the wet cowboy faced the stern chief, his dripping clothes clinging awkwardly to his frame. Among those watching was Ahiv, the chief's daughter, a young woman whose sharp mind and fiery spirit were as legendary as her father's authority. Her gaze followed Jade with intrigue, noticing his honesty and the courage it took to face a man like Nanton without retreating. She had seen many men stumble in the face of her father's laws, but something about this stranger seemed different, something that made her question the rules she had grown up respecting so strictly. Chief Nanton, sensing both his daughter's curiosity and the potential in the cowboy, decided that Jade's fate would not be left to chance alone. He announced that the cowboy must complete 3 trials, designed to test courage, wisdom, and respect. The entire village gathered, anticipation hanging thick in the air, as Jade listened to the first instructions, realizing that each challenge would push him to his limits in ways he had never imagined. The sun beat down, the river sparkled invitingly, and the cowboy, though nervous, felt a surge of determination. His life, it seemed, was about to change forever, and the next step would define not just his fate, but the possibility of love, honor, and belonging in a land that demanded nothing less than courage. As Jade stared at the path that lay ahead, water still dripping from his hair and clothes, he felt a mix of fear and excitement. Each trial promised danger and revelation, and he knew there was no turning back. This river, the chief's law, and the fiery gaze of Ahiv had set a course that would alter his destiny in ways he could not yet comprehend. He took a deep breath, adjusted his hat, and stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges the Apache chief had set before him. Little did he know, the first test would demand more than courage. It would require a heart that could understand, respect, and endure the traditions of a people whose strength and wisdom had survived centuries. And so, the cowboy's unexpected journey into the heart of the Apache land began, each step carrying him closer to a fate he had never imagined, yet one he could not resist. Jade stood at the edge of the village, feeling the weight of Chief Nanton's words pressing on him. The first trial was courage, a test designed to push a man beyond fear and hesitation. He was to climb a sheer cliff to retrieve a bundle of sacred herbs, a task that had humbled many before him. The rocks were jagged, loose in places, and the cliffside was home to a pair of eagles who watched the intruder with wary eyes. Jade felt the sweat on his back mix with the drying river water as he examined the precarious path upward. Every step demanded focus, every grip on the stone could mean life or injury. He began the ascent slowly, measuring each move. The wind gusted unpredictably, tugging at his hat and the loose strands of his shirt. At one point, a rock slipped beneath his boot, sending a shiver of panic through him, but he gritted his teeth and regained his balance. He thought of Ahiv and the respect he owed her family, and something within him hardened. This wasn't just about proving himself. It was about honor, about showing that even a cowboy from the distant plains could rise to meet the challenges of a people whose traditions had endured for generations. Halfway up, the eagle screeched, flapping wings in alarm as Jade carefully avoided disturbing its nest. He paused, catching his breath, and admired the vast expanse of plains below him. From this height, he could see the world differently, the vastness, the freedom, and the fragility of life itself. Drawing a deep breath, he continued, finally reaching the small ledge where the herbs grew, delicate and fragrant, waving gently in the breeze. With careful hands, he gathered them without damaging the plants or the bird's home. When he descended safely, the villagers erupted in quiet applause, and Chief Nanton gave a nod of approval, a rare acknowledgement of bravery that Jade felt in his bones. The second trial demanded wisdom, a challenge that would test his ability to think and act with fairness. 2 members of the tribe had been in dispute over the rights to water from a nearby spring, their argument escalating with each day. Jade was called to mediate. He listened carefully to both sides, noting the subtleties in their speech, the emotions beneath their words, and the cultural values guiding their claims. He proposed a solution that allowed both men access to the water in a fair rotation, ensuring harmony and respect for the land. Chief Nanton's eyes gleamed with approval. Not every outsider could understand or navigate the intricate balance of justice in the tribe, but Jade had. The third trial tested respect, the hardest of all for a man who had lived freely on the open plains. Jade was asked to spend a night alone in the desert, with nothing but his horse and the stars above for company. He was to reflect on the traditions, the land, and the people whose laws he now lived among. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Jade felt the enormity of the silence around him. The desert spoke in whispers, reminding him of the fragility and beauty of life. He thought of Ahiv, the river, and the unexpected path that had brought him here. Night deepened, and the desert's chill crept into his bones, but Jade's heart warmed with understanding. He realized that respect was not just about obedience, it was about seeing the world through the eyes of another, honoring their ways, and carrying that reverence forward. The moon rose high, casting silver light over the sand, and Jade felt a quiet strength fill him. When morning came, he returned to the village, renewed and aware of the depth of what he had learned. He was no longer simply a cowboy who had bathed in the wrong river. He was a man who had faced trials, understood their meaning, and risen to meet them. Chief Nanton greeted him with solemn pride. "You have faced courage, wisdom, and respect. You are worthy," he said, his voice carrying the weight of finality. Ahiv stepped forward, her eyes meeting Jade, reflecting the spark of admiration and curiosity that had grown over the past days. "You have completed the trials, and you have done so with integrity," she said softly. Jade, dripping once again from the river, felt a surge of emotion he could not easily name. He bowed, acknowledging both her words and the path that had brought him here. The villagers cheered, not just for the completion of the trials, but for the union of respect, honor, and courage that had come to life before their eyes. Chief Nanton nodded at his daughter, then back at Jade. "The river has chosen, and so has my heart in judgment. You will honor this bond," he declared. Jade smiled, knowing that what had begun as a mistake had transformed into something far greater. The cowboy who had entered the river unknowingly had proven himself, not through chance, but through courage, thought, and respect. In the days that followed, Jade integrated into the tribe, learning their customs, sharing stories of the plains, and growing closer to Ahiv. Together they bridged two worlds, the freedom of the cowboy and the strength of the Apache people. Their bond became a symbol of unity, of honor earned, and of love forged in the fires of challenge. The river that had started it all remained a sacred place, now a reminder not of a mistake, but of destiny and the choices that define a life. Jade's journey became a legend, a story told around campfires long after he and Ahiv had raised their family. Children listened wide-eyed as elders recounted the day a cowboy bathed in the wrong river and was tested by a chief whose wisdom had endured generations. It was a story of bravery, yes, but also of respect, humility, and the willingness to embrace the unexpected. The river, the trials, and the chief's daughter had changed a man's life forever, proving that sometimes what begins as a mistake can lead to the most extraordinary adventures. And so the cowboy who had stumbled into the Apache River emerged not just victorious, but transformed. Jade had learned that courage alone was not enough, that wisdom must guide action, and that respect could unlock doors no strength could force open. Ahiv, once merely the daughter of a powerful chief, became his partner in life, bound not just by law, but by shared understanding and admiration. Together, they honored the land, the people, and the river that had brought them together, a story echoing through generations as a testament to the unexpected paths that life can take. In the end, the river that Jade had thought of as an oasis had become a symbol of destiny, a reminder that even mistakes could hold lessons and opportunities. The cowboy's laughter, once echoing over the plains, now carried the depth of experience and understanding. The village, the chief, and the river had taught him that life's true rewards came not from avoiding mistakes, but from facing them with courage, integrity, and respect. Jade and Ahiv's story remained timeless, a tale for every traveler who dared to step beyond the familiar and embrace the unknown, for sometimes the wrong river leads to the right life.